Hi everybody, Dana here again, and welcome back to Tuesday Tips for Leaders of Volunteers. And this week I'm talking about something that came up in a couple of threads and conversations where why volunteers maybe first have contact with your organization and then it seems like they don't follow through or they don't end up joining your mission. So the number one reason that volunteers themselves shared in these different threads, and this was on LinkedIn and Facebook and Reddit and Twitter, that these conversations were happening recently, is one, a lack of follow-up. So a lot of times volunteers will get in touch with your organization and then people are saying they're not hearing back or they're not hearing back in time. And they're also, when they do hear back, there's too many other steps. So there's too many barriers or too many things to do or hoops to jump through that it's not easy for them to volunteer, and they get really frustrated with that. The other main reason that we're hearing, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point, a couple of years into a pandemic, is people of course still have serious health concerns about COVID exposure. So depending on how your agency interacts with the public or how many people are working together, or if there's remote work or it has to be at a certain site or it's indoors or outdoors, that's going to affect people self-selecting to maybe not potentially expose themselves to the virus or bring it back to family members. So that one, I think we've intuited that that's one of the big reasons, but the one that we can really solve for the easiest is not getting back to people in time. So if you're a department of one or you're way too busy to individually answer all of the volunteer inquiries, then there's a lot of ways to automate that, so at least there's a first couple of response cycles to people who are interested in volunteering that can let them know that someone will be in touch with them in a certain amount of time. So ideally, you can follow up with someone within 24 hours of the inquiry, but whatever you think the time frame is for a phone call or setting up an interview, put that in all your recruitment material and on your website, so it's really clear that you'll follow up with someone 48 or 72 hours, so that you can kind of set and meet that expectation of how long it's going to be to get in touch with someone. Also, as much as possible, be transparent about what your process is. Some volunteer roles need a background check and several weeks of training. Others are going to be episodic or kind of drop in and you just get trained on the job, and everything in between. So if all of that is really clear for each volunteer role, and if ideally you're able to offer some things that are remote that people can do as projects at home or online, and other things that maybe have to be in person, again, setting and meeting expectations and trying to reduce the number of barriers or hoops or steps that people have to do or that you personally have to handle as a manager of volunteer services or a coordinator or even a director, that's going to help streamline that process. So for COVID measures, again, make all of that really clear so people can make their own decision of how much they can or will participate with your organization to protect their own health and the health of their loved ones. Now, your volunteer management software system or your email program or functions within your website like your CRM database, your marketing database, all of those should have a way for if someone's filling out a form or an application online, you can automate a response and send them that information as the next steps that they need to do to become a volunteer. And that can serve as a good baseline for, okay, they did get back to me right away. I don't feel like I'm being ignored. So hopefully, if you are just a small team and you don't feel like you can do that personally, find ways to automate that with the software and the systems that you already have. If your technology isn't up to automating some of those responses, then one of my favorite things is delegate, delegate, delegate. See if there are other volunteers on your team that have been with the organization a long time that can kind of help be an onboarding committee or a welcoming committee or a recruitment committee to take some of that immediate contact off your plate and give them the communication and messaging and mission kind of talking points and next steps so that they're really clear on that. It also helps if all of your staff members who might answer the phone or deal with a question about volunteering have a 30-second little elevator pitch, or at least they know the basics and they can tell people how long they might have to wait to get someone to contact them again. But the number one complaint I saw in these threads from volunteers themselves is they wanted to work somewhere, they were really dedicated to the cause, and they felt like the organization kind of flaked on them and didn't get back to them, or came back with a lot of requirements that were just going to be too difficult for someone to do comfortably. So take a look at your barriers, and any biases that might be behind those, update any systems as much as you can, automate the onboarding process as much as you can, and then tell people when to expect that human interaction of how long they have to wait for an onboarding interview, or if there's a group training, or if it's online training. And hopefully that will get you more people from more diverse talent pools and keep your programs up and running really, really well. So I hope you've enjoyed these Tuesday tips, and we'll have more for you next week. Thanks.